Hello there, Bitizens, and welcome to the Killer Bits. My name is Francesca, and today we are beginning our beginner deck series as we make some very basic decks for each of the different pantheons. So if you look at the cards here, you'll notice that there's different kind of colored circles depending on their rarity. So this is a starter card. Cards you start with have no color. White is common. I believe blue is uncommon. Purple is rare, and gold, if we can find a gold card somewhere. Come on, there it is. Gold is legendary, so they're the super rare ones. So we'll be only using cards that have basically this circle here without any kind of color. And today we're going to be doing a Zeus deck, so this is a Greek deck, so we'll be using Greek cards and we'll be using neutral cards to make this deck. And more or less here it is. This is a kind of gods and minions deck. You're looking to kind of control the board with a lot of minions and more or less take out your opponents. So we've got some early game control cards such as Sunder and Fist of the Gods. Fist of the Gods stuns an enemy, Sunder does damage to them, along with the Basilisk, which deals damage and root. So these are early game monsters. A couple of marksmen. You'll notice he's had his health nerfed. It used to be 1-3, now it's a 1-2. And a brute. And then as we get into the mid game, we've got a couple of Elder Harpies. You'll notice they have their health nerfed as well. They're on 2 health now rather than 3, which means they can be taken out with Sunder. And then as we get into the late game, you know, this is where we're starting to summon a lot of stronger creatures. So we've got Aphrodite, we've got Hades, we've got Athena. These are all gods, and they also trigger the divinity of marksman. So every time you summon one of these, if you have a marksman on the board, it'll gain +1 attack. We have the Fury, which has pardon. Pardon means you don't get hit back, so that's pretty strong. And we have charge, which if you cast these on one of these creatures, allows it to hit early. So yeah, that's more or less the basic Zeus deck. I think it's a decent deck. There are, you know, cards that are really nice in this deck, like Thanatos, for example. He can travel to any enemy, god or minion with 2 or less health and execute them. So he can then be used to take out, like, what's it called, a Harpy. And he's got initiative, which means he can do that on the turn he's summoned. So you could summon a Thanatos and take out a Harpy, which means it's kind of like a Sunder with the benefit of then you have a Thanatos on the board, which your opponent has to deal with, for example. Beacon of Hope, put a random Greek god into the battlefield, can be quite fun because, you know, the Greek gods are generally pretty strong. So yeah, there are some good cards. Medusa especially is very, very strong, but we don't have her, and this is a beginner deck, so never mind. Anyway, without further ado, I guess we'll jump into a game with beginner Zeus. Q. Let's go. Let's see how this works out. Now, a lot of people say that kind of like you have this kind of triangle of counters. They say that like Ra counters Zeus, Zeus counters Odin, and Odin counters Ra. I think that's like true to a certain extent. You know, Ra has a lot of control. He can take out a lot of these minions that that Zeus puts on the board, whereas Odin, he has a lot of smaller minions, so he can basically spam a lot of minions onto the board, which overwhelms Ra. Similarly, Zeus, like, he has a lot of big minions, so he can quite easily, and a lot of them are ranged, take out these smaller minions that an Odin is summoning. Though Norse did just get a bunch of new cards. Fenrir, Kaldr, and Skadi have been added to the Norse pantheon, so they've been fleshed out a bit. So we'll talk about that another time. At the moment, like I said, we're doing beginner stuff, so we're not too worried about, you know, the new cards that are being added or the stronger cards, because, you know, we won't really be using them at this point, although we may see them if we go up against them, so it's maybe worth considering. And hopefully we will get a game fairly shortly. Time of day is not probably the best time for queuing. It's not a very NA friendly time, and it's still fairly early in the day for EU, but we'll see how it goes.
Today I fight not for Olympus, but for myself. My light, these immortals must be shown the order of things.
Okay, so we have a hand. This is a fairly poor hand to start with. Marksman is alright because we can get him summoned up nice and early, but the Fury and the Athena aren't going to be useful till late game, so we can just get rid of them. We're going first, which is kind of interesting because obviously, like, if we're going first, it means that we don't have the mana crystal, which means we can't, you know, gain an extra mana, but we have a couple of 2 health minions, and then we've got a couple of bigger minions, which is less useful, but not the end of the world. So I think we'll just dump a Basilisk down, and then we'll also hit Zeus. I mean, he'll hit us back because he's ranged, but we have control here, so, you know, it's okay to put that damage out on him because he's going to have to deal with this Basilisk, which is good for us, basically. We'll see what he does. This is a mirror match, so, I mean, it may be an awkward one for me simply because this guy might have, you know, paid cards in his deck, but I don't think that it's unwinnable. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But yeah, not really much to add. I've moved close enough such that I can move the Basilisk, like, basically up to him on my next turn if he doesn't take it out. Because he can only move 2, so he can move to here or here, and Basilisk can attack diagonally, so even if he moves, we can move the Basilisk to where he is and hit him and root him, which is quite useful. And we'll see how he does. The fact that he's... Oh, I was going to say the fact that he's taking so long with his turn. I just forgot to end mine. I'm just a terrible person. I'm one of those people who waits out the timer. I am truly scum. I was going to say the fact that he hasn't done anything bodes well for me, but now we don't know. Now we don't know. Right, well, we're just going to wait for him here. This is the thing. I think they should turn the enemy turn timer down. They could get away with it being like 100 seconds or even like down to 90. And it would still be fine. It's currently 2 minutes. So I think it's a little bit too long because it also encourages people to time waste. Which is not a good thing to do. I accidentally was time wasting. I was not intentionally doing that, you guys. Like, trust me on this one. It wasn't intentional. So we've got Hades and a Fury in our hand, which aren't the most useful cards in the world. If he summons something here, that's a good way to stop. I was going to say that's a good way to stop the Basilisk, but he has not. So we'll bring the Basilisk and then we'll hit him. Okay. So my power is that I can spend 2 mana and draw a card, but I don't really want to do that right now. Do some damage to that. We'll come here. I'll summon this marksman here for now, I think. And can I hit him? No, I can't hit him. Okay, we'll just hit Zeus then. This is okay. I would have liked to hit the marksman, but I wasn't quite close enough to get it into range, unfortunately. But I can always move these two close enough to hit it next turn, which is good. We've also got the Aphrodite, which means if we summon the Aphrodite next turn, our marksman will then have +1 damage, which means I can actually use the marksman to take out his marksman without competition. And then I'll have the Aphrodite up as well, which is pretty good. And we can also use the Aphrodite then to kiss either me or the Basilisk, which stops it from taking return damage. Though if he's sensible, he'll take out the Basilisk on this turn. The problem is, obviously, he ideally wants to hit it with Zeus, but if he hits it with Zeus, it'll hit him back. So he's taking another 2 damage, and that's because of the root. Like, ideally with Zeus, you'd move out of range and then hit something. But unfortunately for him, it was not to be this turn. Okay, this is interesting. So at the moment, I'm not in taunt range, which means I can kind of more or less do what I want. So I think what we'll do... We'll summon Aphrodite behind me. How can I move this to here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't get into range of this bastard. Because I can't move far enough with my minion. This is annoying. Okay. In that case, we'll probably back off here and maybe be a little careful. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we'll stick Aphrodite here. 1 sec. 1, 2. Yeah, okay, we'll move me here. We'll stick Aphrodite here. And kiss me. I'll then use me to attack this guy, which means I'll take no return damage, and he'll take a damage. We'll use this guy to hit the taunted dude for 2 damage. And then we'll end our turn, I think. So you'll notice that he got increased damage. And ideally, I was going to use him to kill this marksman, but I kind of miscalculated where I positioned him, and I couldn't move him into range in time. But that's okay, because I've got, like, Aphrodite and I've got Zeus and stuff within range of this guy, so we can take him out. And then the taunted dude we can take out with the... marksman. And we can also summon a Hades next round, which will then give him even more damage, which is actually really, really good if we can kind of keep buffing this marksman and then have a front line where they can't kill him. It's going to be very, very good for us. Oh, well, it's not going to be very good for us because he sundered it. So he used the card there to just take it out, which is understandable because that was going to become a problem if he hadn't. So that was kind of a smart play. The thing is, he can move the brute to be close enough to taunt Zeus, but he can't get close enough to Aphrodite, which is good. Now, Hades can use Fear on the turn that he's summoned, causing a unit to run from the Fear, but I don't think it works on taunted units. So if I've been taunted by him, I don't think I'll be able to hit him. And you can see he's trying to take out Aphrodite now because she's a very strong unit. He's used his mana potion, so he's got 4 mana. What's he going to summon? We'll see what he's going to do. 4 mana, you can summon an Aphrodite. You can summon... What else is 4 mana? Hades is 5, Fury is 6. Did he draw? He just drew cards, I think. I don't know. I missed what he played there. Sometimes this game is a little confusing. Oh, he healed this guy. Okay, that's fine. We've got a Sunder. Should he cause us any more trouble? I think what we'll do for now. Like, I don't think Hades can fear this. What we can take him out. We can take out the brute, or we take out the ranged unit. Because if we Sunder him, we can take him out, but then we can't summon Hades, and I want to summon Hades this turn. So we'll summon Hades here, I think. This guy's going to have to hit the brute. We'll use Aphrodite to hit this minion and take it out, because that's useful for us, just not for him not to have that. And then we'll hit this with Zeus, which is fine because I don't take return damage because of the kiss. And then we'll end our turn. I think ultimately we've got 2 gods on the board. He's got, you know, a brute. So we're in a very strong position here for controlling the game. So I'm not feeling too worried about this. But we'll see. We'll see. Next turn we can refresh Aphrodite. So if we summon an Aphrodite on top of an Aphrodite, you can't have 2 Aphrodites out at once because she's a god, like, or goddess. Like, it would be unreasonable for there to be 2 of Aphrodite. But what you can do is you can summon one on top of the other one and it'll heal it, which is an option. Alternatively, wait till this one dies and then just summon our new one. We can also summon our Fury should we want to, or we can Sunder something if that would be useful, which usually it is. And we can take out this brute easily on the next turn. He's trying to control my gods to a certain extent, but we can actually just straight up take him out with Hades and with Zeus. Okay, this is interesting. So ideally we want to take out the Fury on this turn, which means what we'll probably end up doing is sundering this one and hitting it with Aphrodite, right? Then we'll move Zeus out of the way so I don't take return damage. Hit this with you, hit this with you, and then summon a Elder Harpy here that he now has to deal with. And you see we've got very good board control, and this is exactly what I was saying with this deck. You wanna basically start summoning lots of cards up and having lots of minions on the board, and then you just have more or less control of the game. I mean, we have 2 mana left, so we could have not attacked and used our card draw here, but ultimately that attack there took his Harpy off the board, so that was worthwhile. In that situation, I would hold off on drug cards, but now that we're starting to get a smaller hand, we can start to make Zeus's leader power, his spend 2 mana and draw a card, much more useful. Okay, so he's moved forward. I'm guessing he's going to summon a taunt creature here. That would be the most sensible thing to do, and I've kind of set it up that he can do that, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. Oh, he surrendered. Never mind. We are the winners! Woohoo! I think, like, my board presence there was just too much for him to start to deal with, and he's just decided to get into another game. But that's more or less how you play this Zeus deck. We'll jump into another game, and I'll try and show you guys one more game, because we've got the time for it. So you get a feel for beginner Zeus. But you can see that he's a fairly straightforward leader to play, and it's a fairly straightforward pantheon to play as a new player, and the beginner cards, I think, especially for Zeus, are strong enough that, you know, it's pretty good. Like, you can get away with it. Oh, that was very quick.
Once again, these immortals must be shown the order of things.
Okay, so we're going into a Ra matchup. You'll also notice we're on the jungle map, and we're going second, which is why we have 4 gods to mulligan instead of 3. We'll hold on to the Basilisk. We don't need any of these gods because we'll, you know, find them later on. It's better to have these weaker monsters a little earlier on, honestly. And we'll see how this goes with this Ra. He's going to summon something probably in this bush. Creatures summoned in the bush you can't actually see. So you can't see them until they've moved. He can move up to 3. So I'm thinking what we'll probably do here. See, he can move to here. I'm just wondering whether it's smarter for me to summon creatures in this bush, or whether I should try and... Yeah, I think that's probably the better plan for now, because he can move. He can't move close enough to me if I move here, and we'll dump the Basilisk in this bush here, and then end our turn. So this is a fire imp. It can move up to 3 squares, and it's got pardon, which means I'm gonna have to kill it. Unfortunately, it's in a bush, which means I can't target it at the moment. But ultimately, I'm not too worried about that, because now what we can do is move to here and summon the brute here, which will taunt all 3 of these units. Actually, summon the brute here, and then bring the Basilisk in and take out the Elder Harpy, I think. Did he just teleport me? He did. That's an interesting tactic. Huh. Fair enough. Okay, I think what we need here is board control. So what we're going to do is summon the brute here. They're now taunted. Move me to here. Attack this. Use our mana potion. Sunder this. Move our basilisk to here. Root him. And end our turn. So now we have board control. We have 2 creatures out. He has nothing. He's rooted. He's only got 2 cards. I think that was a really efficient play. And that's what I mean, like, you know, putting Sunder in your deck and stuff is useful for board control early on when people may be summoning a lot of creatures like he did there. He's given himself +4 health. That's not really great for him, honestly. We're going to summon Aphrodite. I think I can kiss someone at range, I think. So we'll summon her in the bush where she's nice and safe. And then we'll kiss this basilisk. Because what the basilisk then does is it can hit him for 2 without any kind of repercussion. We're going to leave our taunt minion here alone. Because he can't hit the basilisk until he's taken out the brute, right? So this is actually quite useful. And then I'll just trade 1 health into him. Which is fine because, you know, he's not really able to do that much health damage at the moment. So we want to whittle him away, especially as he just gained, you know, +4. And we'll end our turn. And he's in a pretty precarious predicament. To say the least here. Though, like I say, Zeus does have a lot of control cards. So he has a lot of cards he can use to kind of control the board. Which I think, personally, are fairly strong. Like, he can execute a minion, for example. Or he can execute, or he can... what am I trying to say? We'll just hit this from range. He can execute, or he can last breath, which takes out 2 minions at the start of the next turn. You'll see this when we do a Ra deck, but Ra has very good clear of monsters, so he's a pretty strong card. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where there's nothing we can summon. We can't summon a new Aphrodite, and Athena and our Furies are too expensive, but this is okay. It's okay not to use your mana if you can't. I mean, we could have drawn a card instead of auto-attacking, but auto-attacking let us take out that Fury, so it basically stopped him from having board control. And ultimately, I think that was a stronger decision. Okay, so he's got a Sobek. We can just take out the Sobek. Like, I feel like he's just delaying the inevitable a little bit here. You know, because we can hit it with our Basilisk and then take it out with Aphrodite or with Zeus. And at that point, you know, it's dead. He's slowly but surely taking out the Taunt, which is fine because we've got Athena in our pocket, so we can always just summon a new one at the point when that's useful. 4 mana. He must just not have very good cards. Maybe he drew poorly, or maybe his deck isn't very good. I mean, you'll have noticed by now that my deck is, you know, fairly consistent, which is useful. So we'll hit this. We take no return damage because, again, the Aphrodite link. And he can't target Aphrodite because she's in the bush. We'll then take this out with Aphrodite. We will summon a Fury, which is, he's going to have to deal with this because it's a 6/4. And we can auto-attack him. You know, I'm not particularly worried about him killing me at this point. So whittling away his health for me is quite useful. And end turn. That turn, like, if I'd had the mana, I would have drawn a card, but in this situation, we'd actually spent all our mana, so no card draw for us. Furies, by the way, you can draw 2 of. So you can have 2 Furies on the board, because it's a minion, it's not a god. So what we'll probably do on the next turn, if he hasn't dealt with this, is move to here and summon another Fury here. Because if you summon Furies next to him, 1, he's taunted, so he can't target the Fury himself. He has to target this taunted minion. So he can't move away. And then Furies, they can't move very far, but they hit for 6 and they don't take return damage. So if we can get another Fury here, you know, it's going to put him in a pretty precarious position, all things told. And there's the Execute we talked about. And that's one of his Executes down already. And you can only have 2 of those in a deck. So he's in a pretty awkward position. He's healing and he's just trying to, I guess, survive long enough to kill this taunt minion. But it's still absolutely fine. Because what we can actually do here is dump a Fury down. Oh, this is where it gets interesting, right? Dump another Fury down. And then stun him. And a stunned unit is unable to act and does not deal return damage. So if we stun him, like this, we can then also attack him with these minions that he would normally hit back. But because he's stunned, you know, it said that it was going to hit me back, but it didn't. Hit him with this. You can see there's a kind of animation issue because it says I'm going to take return damage when I mouse over. It says I'm going to take 1, but because he's stunned, I'm not. Hit him again, and now he's down to 7 health. No one took return damage there, and we end our turn. So, Fist of the Gods is a surprisingly useful card. I think a lot of people forget that. They forget how useful it is. which is a shame because it's a really, really useful card. So you can see here he's played Last Breath, which means that Aphrodite and the Fury will die at the end of my next turn. But that ultimately doesn't matter because we can just hit him and kill him. And that's game. So yeah, this is Beginner Zeus. I think Beginner Zeus he's a really great deck to start your Smite Tactics career with, as it's fairly straightforward to play. It's also very strong, even though it only contains basic cards. And you can see that we beat a Zeus and we beat a Ra. We haven't matched up against an Odin. Although it does look like, at least with my opponents, they didn't have the bestest of hands. But yeah, like I said, this is a deck where it's quite simple to play as you kind of learn the ropes of positioning your units and moving your units and when to use abilities and when to do certain things. So hopefully you found this video, informative and helpful. And if you've enjoyed this video, do hit that thumbs up button. Let me know what you thought of the deck in the comments below, how you would maybe add paid cards to the deck, what cards would you add, and which god you want to see next week. So we can either do a Freya Norse deck, a Odin Norse deck, or a Ra Egyptian deck. Again, let me know in the comments below kind of what you want to see. And then once we've got these kind of basic decks out the way, we'll start kind of ramping them up with more cards. Obviously, I have to, improve my collection as well. So that's giving me a little bit of time to do that. And we'll try and stay on top of any balance changes. The reason there was no deck video last week was there was a patch that dropped on the Thursday. So I was waiting until the patch dropped, but I also had a ski trip to go on the weekend. So basically the way the patch lined up with my trip, I wasn't able to record. But we should have videos more or less every Thursday from now on. So yeah, you can see our social media links on the screen, our Facebook, our Twitter, and all that. And if you want to support us further in the content that we do make, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/thekillerbits. I've been Francesca. This has been Smite Tactics. If you want to catch me streaming Smite or occasionally Tactics, I've got a Twitch, twitch.tv/Jagras. And I'll catch you guys next week with another video. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!